Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we are taking a look at some more pretty random cards that are currently trending around the market. Honestly, I feel like there isn't that much crazy stuff happening right now because we are still waiting for a ban list, and this is something that we do see relatively often. With so much Ryziel and Malice the last few months, I think we definitely do need a change to the format. And so a bunch of the cards that we're talking about for today are from those sort of off-meta deck choices that definitely could be relevant after the list. Of course, we do also have a couple of Time Wizard cards to mention as well, which we don't do too often. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see more of in the future. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, first thing we're looking at for today is Crystron Smyger. So the Crystron deck is one that has seen a relatively small amount of success over the last couple of months. They got a bunch of new support in Supreme Darkness that does make the deck a lot stronger, but it hasn't been enough to really push it over the top. I'd say it's more of a tier 1.5 or tier 2 strategy. I think the most noteworthy performance from the deck was Yassine making top 8 at YCS Sydney, but other than that, it's mostly just been regional tops here and there. However, Crystrons are potentially a really strong deck going into the next couple of formats, since it is incredibly unlikely that they will be hit in any sort of way on the ban list, and they even get a really cool new engine that synergizes well with them in the form of the Canines when Justice Hunter comes out. Now, Smyger is a pretty innocent looking card. You can destroy a face-up card you control to special summon a Crystron tuner from your deck. Not a horrible effect. However, the real value is this card's graveyard effect, where you can banish it to add any Crystron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So this card is generally something you're going to play 2 to 3 of in Crystrons. You want to get this card into your graveyard early, and the Crystrons do have a bunch of ways to send cards straight from the deck to the graveyard. However, opening it is also not too bad, since you can simply link it off and then banish it from there. Of course, most Crystron cards are pretty cheap since the deck was pretty bad in the past. As a result, Smyger only has common printings, and either one of those is going to cost you around $4 each at the moment. This card hasn't been printed since like 2017, so if you do have some older bulk, this is definitely a card that's worth digging up and trying to offload. Next up, let's take a look at Clockwork Knight. So this card is a Link 1 that requires you to use a non-Link machine monster with 1,000 or less attack points to Link summon it. Its effect is pretty simple. On summon, you can send a continuous spell to the graveyard to search for the spell version of Clockwork Knight, and you can also tribute another machine monster you control to special summon a machine with 1,000 or less attack points from your graveyard. So really, this card isn't seeing too much play because of its effects, since they are just like really specific. However, the card is getting some attention because it's a Link 1 monster, and it can get a key monster into the graveyard. Now, most notably, as we just talked about, you can normal summon Crystron Smyger and Link into Clockwork Knight. You can then banish Smyger from your graveyard in order to start off the Crystron combos. I believe the other deck that this card is potentially going to see hype for is Cyber Dragons. They are able to make this card using Cyber Dragon Core. Now, Clockwork Knight is a relatively new card from Supreme Darkness, and theoretically it shouldn't be reprinted until the 2026 Megatins, which is quite a ways away. Because of that, the Ultras have gone up a little bit, from around $2 to now being $4 to $5, and then with the QCRs they were down at around $40 to $45, they're now up to about $65 each. Honestly, I feel like this card is a little bit too niche, and even though it did spike, and even if Crystrons do become a stronger deck going into next format, this card probably won't see that much more demand. If anything, I do think its price is going to stay steady over the next few months. If not, it will likely regress back to where it was before. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MSTmerch.com. Now, over at MSTmerch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. On to another random one, we have Ancient Gear Wyvern. So the Ancient Gear strategy, I feel like, is an extremely underrated one. I believe it was at the 2024 NAWCQ that the deck was unexpectedly undefeated at like round 6, something crazy like that. Well, the Ancient Gear deck got a new piece of support in the form of Ancient Gear statue in Maze of the Master, and that is causing the deck to get some attention once again. And one of the most notable price jumps we've seen is with Ancient Gear Wyvern. So this card is basically a Stratos for the deck as it searches for any Ancient Gear card on summon, so naturally this is something that the deck is probably going to want to play in multiples. However, because of this, the card saw a pretty significant price spike over the last couple of weeks. Wyvern was originally a super rare in the Machine Reactor structure deck from back in 2017. I think most of us remember this back then as the one that came out at the same time as all the good dinosaur cards, but the only reason that anyone bought it was because it had a common Max C in it. Fortunately, Wyvern did get a common reprint in Legendary Duelist Season 1, but unfortunately that wasn't a very popular set, so not that many people actually opened it. As a result, we've seen both versions of this card shoot up in price. The commons were around $2 to $3 each, while the supers were around $4 to $5, but we now have either version sitting up at $8 to $10 with very few quantities available. Definitely an unexpected one, but maybe someone is cooking something up for Ancient Gears for this year's Nationals, so for now this is another card to try and dig up out of your bulk and offload while it's seeing the hype. The next one we have is Lunalight Fusion. So over in the OCG, we are in the middle of getting cards revealed for Duelist Advance, which is an upcoming core set. So over there, they have a tournament exclusive pack, I believe, and it's reprinting a couple of Lunalight cards. So the belief is that this means that Lunalights will be getting support in Duelist Advance, even though those cards haven't been revealed yet. Now this has caused a couple of smaller buyouts with some Lunalight cards. For the most part, Lunalights were low rarity, or they have like really budget reprints and were commons, so it's just a couple of odd things that have gone up in price very slightly. So here we are talking about Lunalight Fusion. Now this card isn't a particularly great fusion spell, it's basically just a polymerization for a Lunalight Fusion monster, but if your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, you can send one material from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard instead. So for the most part, I think this might just end up being something that's used at either 0 or 1, maybe if they have a way to search it, it could come up, but historically I think we only really see Lunalight stuff used as an engine, so it'll be interesting to see if the new cards are enough to make it a viable pure strategy, or if it's just going to continue being an engine that tries to abuse Lunalight Tiger. Anyways, Lunalight Fusion is one of the few cards with a holo printing that was slightly difficult to pull. So we have the super rares coming in at around $5 to $6, which is up from $1 or $2, though the card does also have a common printing available as well. Just an interesting one to note, though, if you guys do have other Lunalight cards, you might want to try to package some of them together and have them ready to move in playsets in order to actually get some value out of them. So this one's a pretty interesting one. We have Herald of the Arclight. Now over in the OCG, they just had a ban list, and it looks like one side set has completely overtaken the other. That is, they've gone from a format with Ryziel and Malice to one that is dominated by Yummy, K9, and Dragontail, and Herald of the Arclight happens to be a really good extra deck option for the Yummy strategy. The Yummy deck uses level 1 and 2 monsters to link and synchro summon, but they can't get very high in terms of levels, so they will often aim to make Herald of the Arclight as early on in their combo as possible in order to protect them from Nibiru. That said, Arclight was trending back a few months ago when people swore that Mitsurugi Ryziel was the best Ryziel variant and were sending Arclight to the graveyard with Dogmatica Maximus to search for the Mitsurugi cards. Now it's a different reason, but Arclight is being bought out again. This time it might stick because it seems like Arclight is just a really good synchro to have access to. Now fortunately this card was reprinted in Rarity Collection 1, so it's available in a bunch of different rarities and you can pick whatever one you like. However, as we've seen countless times in the past, since Rarity Collection sets first came out, it is the highest rarity QCRs that have jumped in price. With these, they were at a high of around $20, they'd fallen to $12 to $15, and now they are right back up around the $20 mark. Honestly, I think that this is just going to be one of those things that sees a ton of play for a lot of years as an extra deck card for a ton of different strategies. Now, it doesn't have to be the highest rarity, but if I were you guys, I would pick a rarity that you feel like you want to hold on to and just keep them for yourself to use and then offload your remaining printings while they are seeing some hype. Okay, so to wrap this one up, we have a couple of older cards to talk about, starting with number 16, Shockmaster. So this card is probably the most broken Xyz monster that the game has ever come out with. This is a generic rank 4 that requires 3 monsters as material, but it lets you lock your opponent out of either monsters, spells, or traps for the rest of the turn, as well as your opponent's turn. So historically, you could make like 2 copies of this card, you could lock your opponent out of using monsters or spells and just stop them from playing the game completely. It was just a really bad time. Now apparently, Shockmaster is getting a bunch of attention on the secondary market. So the main thing is that I've seen people talking about how you can use this card in certain Time Wizard formats. And yeah, Time Wizard formats get really popular because players can use so many different older cards and even some broken cards like this. I guess Shockmaster is just one of the cards that you can make in certain formats that people want to have access to. The other thing I've heard that is absolutely ridiculous, by the way, is that people think Shockmaster is going to be unbanned to help out Ryziel and keep the deck relevant even after whatever Ryziel hits we get on the next ban list. Honestly, if you think that, you're probably on the same stuff that LeBron was on when he was inbounding the ball against Chicago last night, because there's basically a 0% chance of that ever happening. Anyways, the ultra rare jump promo of Shockmaster has shot way up in price. They're technically around $20 to $25 right now, based off of what's available and the sold listings, but there's actually only a couple of quantities available before this card jumps to like $40. If this really is something that you want to play in an older format, the other printing available is the super rare from the old tins. They're still only around $3 to $4 each, but it's the only other printing, and this card's banned, so it probably won't get any reprints in the near future, so you might want to pick them up for your own usage. And finally, the last card we're taking a look at for today is Wind-Up Rat. So Wind-Ups are a deck that have been getting more and more attention in a couple of different Time Wizard formats, and it does make a bit of sense because Shockmaster is a card that Wind-Ups were able to make in the past. Wind-Up Rat is a pretty innocent looking card where you can switch this card from attack to defense mode to revive a wind-up monster from your graveyard. This was something that could be done once while this card was face up on the field, so there were things you could do where Photon Papilloperative would change this card to attack mode just so you could be sure to use its effect, but obviously this was back in a much simpler time of Yu-Gi-Oh! But yeah, wind-ups are pretty popular. They are one of the most powerful decks of all time, so there's something that players are looking to put together for various formats. Unfortunately, this card is one of those ones that just has one printing available. For whatever reason, Konami actually never reprinted it, so when Wind-Up became popular as a Time Wizard format, Rat is one of the hardest pieces of the deck to get, and so it has shot up in price. These things were only a few dollars before. At one point, they looked like they were hitting like $25, something crazy. Realistically, they're around $10 to $15 right now. Definitely a fun one, but I do think that this card could be reprinted in the upcoming Quarter Century Stampede set in the Nostalgia Pool, so maybe just wait a little bit before you decide to buy into it. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. Some really random stuff, but you know, we are just waiting for that ban list. Hopefully they do the thing where they announce it live at YCS Houston. That would be absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be at that event, but I'll definitely be paying attention to the live stream so that I can hopefully catch that and share that moment with everyone. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.